Ms. Smith has agreed to hang around for a few minutes after the next presentation, so we may have a little bit of crossfire or rebuttal if there's some point of disagreement between Mr. Garrett and Ms. Smith. So right now we'll hear Georgia's School Superintendent Association Executive Director Herb Garrett.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me in Thomasville. I told Dr. Cornegay it's been a long time since I've been here, and I enjoyed the drive back down. What a beautiful community you have to live in. I'm envious. I'm here to provide what I think will be some information on one of the ballot questions that you will face if you haven't already voted, or that you will face on November the 6th. And here's the question that you'll see. Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended to allow state or local approval of public charter schools upon the request of local communities? Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended to allow state or local approval of public charter schools upon the request of local communities? Now, I don't know how that sounds to you, but to me that sounds pretty vanilla and pretty harmless. And like most ballot questions, if you don't know this, like most ballot questions, it's written so as to elicit a yes vote from people who don't know what the issue is, from uninformed voters, people who just don't delve into the issue and know what it is. And my goal is to have you better informed before you vote on that. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit from my point of view about what charter schools actually were and what they are. Charter schools started about 20 years ago. The birthplace for most of them was in Minnesota. That was the original place where state laws were written. And they were to be what was known as laboratories of innovation. As Julie said, they were started by small groups of parents and teachers usually. And the idea was that they were going to take this small school, maybe just fewer than 100 kids, and do something different. Try some things and see if they would work, and maybe find ways to educate kids that we hadn't tried before. And the idea would be then, if it worked, we would replicate that on a larger scale in the larger education community. You can imagine 20 years ago, one of the innovations was probably the use of technology. That's not so innovative anymore because everybody's got it, but that was the kind of thing that they tried. The charter schools differ from regular public schools in that they are typically allowed to waive any number of state laws and policies that traditional schools are required to follow. A good example, for example, might be class sizes. They might be able to write their charter in such a way that they could have way more kids in a class than a public school could have because the public school has certain restrictions in law. Charter schools in many cases are not required to hire certified teachers. For example, instead of hiring a teacher with an art degree from Valdosta State to teach art, they could go down to the corner in Atlanta and find a starving artist and let the starving artist come and be the teacher. I mean, they can waive those kind of requirements in order to do things differently. In some cases, they differ from traditional public schools because they offer a different curriculum. There's a series of charter schools in mostly the big metro areas in our country. We certainly have them in Atlanta, called KIPP schools. Knowledge is power. And it's a specific curriculum that school teaches, and they do things like extended days and Saturdays and that sort of thing. So that was where charter schools started 20 years ago. In my view, from what I see from a state level, it appears to me, though, that many of our charter schools have morphed into schools that really don't look a whole lot different than the school down the street, but they've become a part of the choice movement. They are a piece of what we have come to know as the school choice movement. Now, we do have several varieties of charter schools. Julie described them as dependent and non-dependent. That's a unique way of describing it. I've never heard that before. But we have several different kinds. We do have those startup charter schools where groups of interested parents and teachers or community members might go to a local board. We have conversion charter schools. One of the most successful conversion charter schools in our state is Walton High School in Cobb County. that consistently boast the highest test scores, SAT scores, and everything else, but they operate as a charter. We have entire charter school systems, just like Cartersville. This is an initiative of Lieutenant Governor Cagle, who started it several years ago. And I know that the Grady County schools are at least considering that now, even in your own area. And then we have what are called state special charter schools. And these are schools that were at one time turned down by local boards, but have been approved by the State Board of Education. Several of those schools were charter commission schools when the commission was found to be unconstitutional. And soon after it was found to be unconstitutional, even in light of the opinion of a lot of people that the State Board would no longer be able to approve charter schools, that somehow the Supreme Court decision said things that nobody else seems to be able to see, the State Board went ahead and approved them, and we've got 15 of them now. So I would argue from that point that there is already an appeals process, but we can argue that further. But it's into this already what I would call a rich arena of charter schools that our General Assembly has decided to add another bureaucracy by amending our Constitution, which I think is a serious thing to do, to vote to amend our Constitution, to enable the recreation of that Georgia Charter Schools Commission that was found to be unconstitutional. And in ruling that the local boards of education, as our Constitution says, are vested with the management and control of school systems in Georgia, the General Assembly wants to get this one back, get the Charter Schools Commission back. Well, my questions would be, well, why? Why would our General Assembly want to do this? It took a 2/3 vote of both the House and the Senate to get this question on the ballot. Well, it can't be just for academic reasons, because all the research that's done on charter schools, both here in Georgia and across the country, indicates pretty much what you would expect. There are some really good charter schools. There are some lousy ones. There are some really good public schools. There are some that struggle. So I don't know that the academic reason is a reason to recreate a state-level bureaucracy that was recently found to be unconstitutional. It can't be simply for the altruistic purpose of providing more school choice. Local boards can already approve charter schools, as many of them have. The state board can approve charter schools that are denied by local boards, as they have in several instances. Over half of Georgia's school systems, allow students to cross district lines and attend schools out of district. Many of them don't charge tuition. We have home schools. We have private schools. Choice, choice, choice. I guess my question is, how much more do we need? Well, it must be more than academics. It must be more than school choice, and I believe that it is. The supporters of this amendment tout this as an avenue to provide more charter schools and systems where local boards have been reluctant to approve them. And I would say we already have that in place now. So I believe that this rush to approve this alternate authorizer to recreate this commission is a bit puzzling until you read the enabling legislation that goes along with it. There's always a bill that goes along with a resolution that tells you how it works. So here's what this legislation says. It says that a person or group of people would be able to completely bypass the local board to get approval from this recreated state commission by simply declaring that the attendance zone for the charter school would be a statewide attendance zone. A statewide attendance zone. All the person would have to do is notify the Board of Education in the community, county, or city school system where the actual school would be located, that it was going to be located there, and the local board would have no say-so over it at all. It's an end run around local boards simply by claiming a statewide attendance zone. The funding mechanism for these schools in this House bill provides more than 2 times as much state money per student as the state provides for the kids in Thomas County, Thomasville City, Grady County, Cartersville City, Bartow County. State money. I acknowledge the fact that they don't get local money, But there is a willingness on the part of the state to fund charter school kids into special charter schools with twice as much state money as they're willing to fund for the local school systems already in existence. As Julie noted, even though charter schools are typically started by a nonprofit organization, they are frequently run by charter school management companies, and there are big bucks to be made on this. And it's evidenced by the presence of companies in Georgia like Charter Schools USA and K-12. K-12 runs our special charter virtual school. They have 10,000 kids. Their state budget this year, state dollars alone, $50 million. $50 million for a single school. 10,000 kids, it's a virtual school, not a brick and mortar school like this one, $50 million. But both of these companies have donated healthy sums to the campaign to try to get the amendment passed. So here's what I would say. Today we reside in a state where class sizes have risen dramatically in schools all across Georgia, where teachers and other school employees have been furloughed and laid off, where popular programs have been eliminated, and where insurance costs that were formerly paid by the state have been shifted on the backs of local property taxpayers, all due to the hits that the state budget has taken during the recession. But in the midst of all of that, we see a proposed amendment to the Constitution that, if approved, would create a dual school system and fund it with additional dollars taken from a state budget that either cannot or will not pay, and certainly has not paid, for the K-12 schools it is already constitutionally mandated to provide for its children. So when I see this effort, I see another unneeded level of government, additional and again unneeded cost to the taxpayer, and another potshot at local control. It has become something of a David versus Goliath fight, in that most of the opposition to the amendment comes from teacher and parent groups and other educator organizations who are supporters of public education, while most of the support comes from organizations like Americans for Prosperity, the Friedman Foundation, the Walton Foundation, but even the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. The big money is on the pro side, and the result of that will undoubtedly be an advertising avalanche between now and November the 6th, which I've already seen. My organization, the Georgia School Superintendents Association, is opposed to the amendment, and I hope that my presentation has made clear our reasons for that. And so that's the end of what I wanted to say, and I'll be glad to participate in any debate that the moderator would like for us to do at this time.